Palm Harbor, Florida, originally known as Sutherland, is located in western Florida overlooking the Gulf of Mexico. Strolling through the park is where you'll find Matt June and his wife Jackie. Matt, an active, healthy Army veteran and United States postal worker in Ohio, started experiencing symptoms in January, approximately 3 years ago.
When I would rest, I would get a lot of muscle twitching. I was having trouble pitching batting practice to my son's baseball team. It was a little colder, I was having trouble gripping the baseball, and I was just thinking it was just, maybe arthritis or something.
Matt was eventually diagnosed with ALS, also known as Lou Gehrig's disease. ALS is a neurodegenerative disease that attacks certain neurons in the brain and eventually destroys them. Dr. Roop Tandon is an ALS expert. He's part of Fletcher Allen Healthcare at the University of Vermont College of Medicine.
ALS, the abbreviation, stands for amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. Amyotrophic means atrophy or wasting of muscles. Lateral is the part of the spinal cord that is involved in the disease, and sclerosis is the name given to scarring within the central nervous system, the brain and spinal cord.
At Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles, Dr. Robert Ballo and his team of researchers have a thorough understanding of what happens in the body when a person develops ALS.
So in ALS, it's the motor neurons, the motor system, the ones that control the muscles and allow you to move. And as they degenerate, as they deteriorate in the spinal cord, actually the muscles will deteriorate with them as a consequence. And so the patient loses strength, they lose muscle mass, and the ability to simply control normal muscle movements.
Successful hardware store businessman and active outdoorsman Roger Long and his wife Darlene live near the Adirondack Mountains in upstate New York. This is Roger a few years ago, and this is Roger today, 4 years after his diagnosis of ALS. The news came as a complete surprise.
I was always somebody who was working out and physically fit, doing what I thought I was supposed to do, and to stay fit and to get a diagnosis like that out of the blue was, it was a little bit, it was numbing.
The disease gets its nickname from the Hall of Fame Yankees baseball player Lou Gehrig, who was diagnosed with ALS in the late 1930s.
In the end of 1938 season, towards 1939, his performance deteriorated. And he actually was continuing to play, and people were saying, there's something wrong with him. He actually went and was evaluated in the 1939 season and was diagnosed with ALS at the Mayo Clinic.
The symptoms of ALS can vary from person to person.
A person will have trouble with their hand, clumsiness in their hand, or a foot will be weak and they'll notice that it's dragging. And then alternatively, they might notice that their speech is changing.
While the disease generally starts in one area, it will eventually spread to other regions of the body. It may go to the other arm or the leg, and then every muscle in the body will be affected over the course of months or years. Patients lose their ability to walk independently and maintain normal activities. Eventually, patients lose the ability to control their respiratory and breathing muscles, and that's when the disease becomes fatal.
Because without those, you can't maintain nutrition, you can't maintain the ability to clear your secretions, and then you're at high risk for pneumonia, and ultimately that's often what kills patients who have ALS.
ALS is very rare. Only 3 out of every 100,000 people get it. But in 1 out of 10 of those cases, the disease surfaces as a result of family history. While genetics are opening up some of the mysteries surrounding ALS, the earlier the disease is detected and diagnosed, the sooner treatments can begin to help slow its progress.
Early detection becomes so important because the earlier you diagnose the condition correctly, the earlier you can start them on treatments that may influence the disease positively and allow the patients to live healthy, productive lives for as long as they can do so.
While there is no cure, there are treatments to help the symptoms of ALS. There is one FDA-approved medication to slow the progression of the disease and other therapies to help with nutrition and breathing.
Breathing is a major issue when people they get shortness of breath because of weakness of their respiratory muscles. So there are treatments available for that.
Recently, a diaphragm pacing device was approved by the FDA as an additional way to help ALS patients with their breathing. The device is no longer considered experimental, allowing it to be covered by commercial and government insurers.
So it's a mechanism to stimulate the diaphragm to allow it to function better so that they can breathe better and therefore, feel more comfortable.
So diaphragm pacing in ALS is the newest advance that we've made, and it's a device that's implanted, so it's underneath the skin, it's on the diaphragm essentially, and as it says, it's a pacer, so it actually provides electrical impulses to the diaphragm periodically to stimulate it and allow it to contract.
Matt heard about the diaphragm pacer a few months after it was approved and thought it could be something that could work for him.
I ran across a patient who received it in December, talking about everything and saying, how much better she felt and everything. So that's when we started looking into it.
Our diaphragm is our breathing muscle. Located just under the rib cage, it aids our lungs to collect oxygen and release it. When the muscle stops contracting, our ability to breathe diminishes. The diaphragm pacer is a device that helps the muscle contract when it can no longer do it on its own. It consists of 4 electrodes that are surgically implanted on the diaphragm and a 5th electrode that is implanted just under the skin that connects all the wires together to an external battery-powered pulse generator known as an EPG. The EPG sends an electrical signal through the electrodes to the diaphragm, causing the diaphragm to contract.
It's located just under my right rib cage. There are 5 wires that run through my body, 2 to each side of my diaphragm, and 1 is a return wire where I receive where I feel the little electrical shock. It's not noticeable at all anymore. It is at first, even when you first plug it in the first time, you do notice and feel a little bit of a return. But it's an external battery pack that's connected, and it just every 3 seconds it just sends a little electrical shock to the diaphragm, which stimulates it, and it keeps it viable longer, so I can breathe on my own longer.
You can think of the diaphragm pacer like your coach for a marathon. You want to start training early enough to increase your endurance. Waiting till you develop symptoms and shortness of breath reduces the time you have to begin training and conditioning. This reduces the possible benefits from treatment.
So it really is good for patients who are in the intermediate stages of their disease so that they still have a function in the diaphragm and they have an intact nerve going to the diaphragm. And when they have that, then you can use an external system to stimulate the muscle directly instead of through the nerve and allow them to breathe.
After receiving his diaphragm pacer, Matt started feeling the benefits.
I feel a lot better. Before I had it, I would think about taking a deep breath now and then. I was just more cognizant of my breathing, whereas a normal person doesn't even think about it, you just do it. Once I got the pacer installed, I was back to not even thinking about breathing, and even now to this day, I still, don't really even think about it. I just do it.
Certain patients who've had the device implanted clearly, feel it improving their breathing. They tell us it's making a big difference in their sleep, in their life, and we're making efforts now to measure those things and to determine is it even improving their quantity, not just quality of life.
For Matt June, each day brings new challenges, but all the same, he's anticipating the ultimate result of advances in ALS research.
The one thing I look forward to most today is the cure, because I want to be able to go in and take a shower on my own, just stand there for 2 hours, let the water run down. I look forward to walking again, and that's all stuff that I believe is attainable. Absolutely. Every day is a new day, and it could be the day that the cure is found. And that's the way I look at things.
While the diaphragm pacer is reported to help people with ALS live an average of 16 months longer without ventilation, it is not a cure. Experts believe with more research, new medications will become available. Roger's nerves can no longer stimulate his diaphragm muscle. He is well past the point where the diaphragm pacing treatment could delay his need for a ventilator. He's been living with ALS for 4 years now. Despite dealing with the obvious ravages of the disease, he is optimistic, and he has advice for others living with ALS.
If you can keep the right mental aspect, if you're surrounded by the right group of people, be it doctors, be it family, whatever, there is hope. And as long as we continue to fight and try to break through, there will be an answer. Don't give up. Don't go into a shell. Don't run away. Meet it head on and try to defeat it in the best possible way you can. No one.
I'm speechless.
Yeah, that's something.
For more information about ALS, please contact the ALS Association at alsa.org or the National ALS Registry at cdc.gov/ALS/what is ALS. ALS forums are available at alsforums.com.